Right back to Bibby has the open shot. And like that, you know, like NBA basketball. And now, ladies and gentlemen of Honolulu, put those hands together. We'll be tonight's starting five for your Sacramento
Kings. Welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom Podcast. I am James Ham, and joining me in this first segment is the longtime color commentator, so many hats, so many years of the Sacramento Kings, Mr. Jerry Reynolds. Jerry, how are you?
Well, you know, I'm just great. A beautiful day here, and obviously just looking forward to the second game of the season.
Yeah, you do kind of want to wash the taste out of your mouth after that first game, don't you?
Yeah, you really do. You know, that was that second half was tough. There's no way you can spin that. It was just really an ugly half, very poorly played, and got home and kind of watched it on TV a little more just because, I guess. And hey, but there's 81 more, and team just simply has to play better, and I'm pretty sure that it will. I don't know that it can help but get better.
Yeah, I think we're in one of those situations where you're trying to piece things together on the fly, and it may take some time. Before we dive into the hardcore basketball, let's talk about the night in general, because this is the 30th anniversary of the Sacramento Kings moving here to Sacramento. This is your 30th year with the franchise, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
And on top of that, They brought out all of these previous owners, previous players. I mean, you get to see Terry Tyler, Tank Thompson, Reggie Theus, and then all of the owners again, Greg Luke and Bill. How nice was it for you to just kind of look out there and see sort of the legacy of the Sacramento Kings over the first 30 years?
Oh, it's great. Just really brought back so many good memories. Obviously, there's been some tough times, but, I felt so lucky to be associated with the Luke and Bill group, and then, Jim Thomas and his ownership group, and then, of course, the Maloofs, and now Vivek Ranadive and his outstanding group. So, 4 different ownerships, all had their strengths, all had their weaknesses, but 30 years and still counting, and that's maybe the most important thing. This is the 30th year, and the Kings are here and going to be here.
We got to see something in that pregame that I don't know about you, but that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. What they did on the floor, where the floor started moving, all of a sudden they turned that floor into a giant television screen. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, I haven't. And, and at the time, I didn't, being on air, we weren't totally cognizant of come home and then watch the replay and all that. Then it, is more apparent, it's like, yeah, it's just off the charts amazing.
Pretty good stuff. Okay, listen.
Really good stuff. Yeah, really was just a terrific opening night from that standpoint, and all the everything that went with it.
We're looking at this team now, and I mean, of course, they have their turnover struggles. That seems to be the biggest issue with this team so far. They're playing better defense. Of course, they didn't shoot the ball well last night either. But what is it about this team that you think is causing this just crazy, 27 turnovers last night? But I mean, we saw the same thing all the way through preseason as well.
Yeah, it is a concern because, as you said, I saw the same thing. We saw it all through preseason. There was never a time when the team really took care of the basketball. I guess just as an observer of the sport, it just seemed to me like we have too many guys trying to do things they're really not capable of doing very well. Certainly the idea that you want to play like the Spurs, that great sounds great, and it is great, but the one thing, the Spurs do that very few teams, they probably only have about one guy that actually really forces the issue and tries to do some things recklessly, and that's Ginobili. And he's great.
He's great at doing that, yeah.
Yeah, and for the most part, he pulls it off. Everybody else pretty much, plays within themselves. Even Parker really, knows, he does some spectacular things, but he's not taking many risks. And it seems to me like this team, we have 5 or 6 guys really taking risks all the time with the ball that obviously it's not going to work out well. Not now, and it's probably not 15 games from now. If you get my drift, it's like just little things like Sessions penetrating in the post, picking it up, and it's like, well, now how's that going to work?
Yeah.
Or Omri Caspi trying to make a lot of plays off the dribble. Well, how's that going to work? Or DeMarcus trying to push the ball up the court, in the open court. I mean, there's just things that you say, well, odds are that's not going to work well.
Were there some things in that first game that you think you can take away that were positives? Because, I mean, in the locker room, there was a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of negativity for the fact that it was, the first game of the season. I think DeMarcus was honest and said, hey, you can take away something from any game, especially a loss. You can learn something. But what is it that you take away from a game like that?
Well, there was a couple of things I really liked. I thought Darren Collison played very well. He didn't shoot well, but he played well. He did, pretty much what you hoped he would do. And so I thought that was a real positive there, that Carl Landry came off the bench and did basically what you hope and expect Carl Landry to do. He offensive rebounds, he scores in the post, he knows where to be in the right spots. So, to me, that was really good. And the third, Nick Stauskas as a rookie, he missed some shots, but overall you could say Nick Stauskas is going to find a way to be a good player. At least that's my opinion, because a couple things. He can shoot. He's got a bit of a handle. He's got a little chippiness to him. He really is trying to play defense. Not good at it, but he's trying. He basically is not very strong. Well, Klay Thompson was weak just like that about 3 or 4 years ago. I remember it very well when he was a rookie.
That's right.
And so I think those are 3 things right off that I take. And I thought the overall team defense was pretty good. There's some breakdowns, but overall they didn't get beat because of defense. They got beat because, their offense was lousy.
I agree 100%. Their offense was lousy on many fronts. Now, you brought up Stauskas and his lack of strength. It's something he's going to have to build on, and that's very difficult to do during the season. But I agree with you. Overall, I saw a very solid production level out of a kid who was coming into his first game. He's got a moxie to him, a swagger to him that you just don't find every day. And he comes out and he actually backs it up on the court. How good do you think Nick Stauskas can be?
I think he can be somewhere in the Kevin Martin, probably. I think he can be better than Kevin, maybe not quite where Klay Thompson is, which is a good place to be.
That is a good place.
And, he's certainly better in my mind than, significantly better than Kevin was as a rookie. And probably just a little bit, and not far behind where Klay was as a rookie. So, and there's some similarities in their size and athleticism and different things. So, I don't like to, make comparisons generally, but I think it's a little bit fair in this case. And to me, I don't think he could miss. That's I guess my point. It's just a matter of, he's going to be pretty darn good. It's just a matter of how good.
The levels of quality that you might get down the road. He's facing off with Ben McLemore at that shooting guard position. McLemore has a less than stellar opening night. But how do you see this working out long term, where you have 2 kids that are both 21 years old? They both need time to grow into a position. But how is that going to work? Because eventually one of these guys is going to need 30-plus minutes a game. And, the Kings are going to have to make a decision on which of these guys is really the answer long term.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess my feeling right now is neither one are good enough to be 35-minute guys anyway.
No.
Right now. So it's not really that big a problem today. Now, whichever one emerges more rapidly, let's say, at the by this time next year, I think you could, even with just 1 year, I think you could start to probably need to make a decision if you're choosing at that position. I personally would love to see McLemore play a lot more at small forward. I know in today's game, I think he can do that. I think he's a little small, but overall that position has changed, and I think honestly with his lack of handle, it would be an easier fit for him. And really behind Rudy there could be some legitimate minutes there. But that's just my one man's opinion of it. I think at the two guard, I think you really need right now more guard skills than Ben has shown. And so you could certainly he can play with Darren because Darren's a solid ball handler, but I think you'd like to have just more of a handle out there. And I think Nick already has an advantage in that area. But I do see a real possibility of Ben, as he gets stronger and he's gotten a little bigger, play more small forward. I mean, you're seeing teams playing two small guards at the same time, or Phoenix's case, playing three small guards at the same time.
Yeah.
I think you can, you've got to find a way to get your best players and athletes on the floor and create mismatches to your advantage, not worrying so much about the other team, worry about your own.
I could see him fitting in and getting more minutes. You're right. The biggest issue with McLemore is that when he's on the court, Darren Collison is sort of a man on an island like Isaiah Thomas was last year. He's a guy that has to handle the ball like 90% of the time. You can't even really trust him to bring up the ball most of the time. And so it creates sort of a difficulty at the point guard position. So Collison, it'll take him longer to get in to the offensive set and everything else because teams don't have to really guard against someone else bringing the ball up the floor. Where Stauskas, you're right, he studied Jason Williams as a kid. He worked under Steve Nash in Canada during the summer, and so he does have a lot of point guard skills at that shooting guard position that I think would really help the starting unit. Do you think, though, that they're going to split up the tandems that they have right now? Because for me, it looks like Darren Collison and Ben McLemore are one group, and Nick Stauskas or Ramon Sessions are another group. And they're sort of letting those veteran point guards sort of bring along one shooting guard each. Do you think there's a possibility they may make a move eventually?
Well, I think if I'm Coach Malone, and I think he has his own idea of what he'd like to see, and I think you hit on it. That's probably his preference, but obviously the team has got to play better, and he knows that, and that may change what you'd like to do as opposed to what you maybe feel like you need to do. I mean, if things are going well, you don't make changes. When they're not, you do. And it wouldn't take many more games like last night to obviously consider going to Plan B, if you get my drift.
I get your drift. Now, we've seen Plan B happen every year. That's the last, 5 or 6 seasons. We do get to see Plan B about 5 to 7 games into the season. The Kings have a brutal schedule to start this year, so I could see Plan B popping up again. The reason I bring this up is because Plan B usually involves Jason Thompson losing his job and then regaining his job and losing his job again. Now, Jason Thompson, he's 58 games after last night. He's 58 games away from being the all-time Sacramento Kings leader in games played, which is remarkable. How surprised are you that Jason Thompson? I mean, he's like the cat that keeps coming back. He just keeps coming back, and it's surprising.
Yes, it is a little bit. I really, honestly, probably like yourself and many fans, that I expected Jason to be traded, and I know there were some teams inquiring about him and interested in him. I know that for a fact, but obviously it wasn't something that the team wanted to do or felt was the right move at the right time. So, but Jason's Jason. He's going to give you the great effort and hustle and try hard. He's got some flaws in his game, but he can play backup center, power forward. There's there's a real value there, and I think Coach Malone has a comfort zone with him because of just he's a guy that's going to go out there, and try as hard as he can every night, even though sometimes he doesn't play as well as he should. So, like I say, Jason keeps he's one of those guys that coaches like to play because they know they can count on the consistent effort, if nothing else.
We had a pretty incredible day yesterday. It was opening day for the basketball team. But at the same time, you and I and a bunch of other people spent the morning at the groundbreaking ceremony for the new arena. You've seen, this is your third arena, like it's your fourth ownership group, but your third arena. How excited are you to walk in the doors that first time and get to see this revelation in downtown Sacramento that will likely transform that entire area downtown?
James, that's just an absolutely great question. I mean, really, I can't think of anything more exciting for me, just selfishly, because I'm not always going to work for the Kings, but I'll always be a Kings fan, and I'll always live in this area. And, to me, this is just maybe the most important thing that's ever happened really in Sacramento, just about. Maybe I guess selfishly, other than the Kings coming to Sacramento, but I think even more than that, because it's like you said, and I think too many people forget that, it's going to transform really what is the worst downtown, in a major city in America. I really believe that. I've seen it happen in so many cities that once the arena is built, you're going to see condos and apartments and other businesses go around there, maybe Major League Soccer not far away, and all of a sudden, you'll have a downtown transform like Indianapolis has been, or Denver, due to the sports and entertainment arenas and teams and things of that nature. And it's just, mind-blowing to go into some of these cities, that I've seen where the downtowns were just pits and now are just great areas to be in. Of course, around the Staples Center now in LA is another marvelous example. So, I just to know that Sacramento, just like Vivek Ranadive is talking about, it really is going to, it was really probably the last chance to get this done. And fortunately, Mayor Johnson and Mr. Ranadive and others have pulled this off, and it's just going to be remarkable and great for the city. And someday when I cash them all in, just to know that this thing has been done, it'll be really gratifying.
All right, I know I don't want to keep you all day. You're a busy man, but this is a big season for especially guys like Gary Gerald, who is turning his 30th year as the voice of the Sacramento Kings on the radio. Grant Napier, I think, is 27 years on television as, with the Sacramento Kings. Yourself, what is this, 17, 18, 19 years that you've been on television?
Yeah, something like that. I don't even really know.
Yeah.
There's so many things run together, but yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, and there's all of this change that's happened behind the scenes. I mean, I know a lot of the change. You've seen so much of the change. But for the fans, it's so special that the faces and the voices of the team haven't changed. And I know you guys, all three of you, just locked into new contracts with the Kings to sort of carry this forward. How much do you think that means to this community to be able to have that continuity, that same voice in your head the whole time? As an Oakland A's fan, to not being able to hear Bill King's voice is just criminal at this point. And, how much do you think it means to have you guys there?
I think it means something, and I mean, I know that's a little bit selfish on my part, but I do think it's important for fans to have a comfort zone, with their announcers, and because especially, when they feel like the announcers are for them and with them, and so because, with the players themselves and coaches and things, it gets changed a lot. So I think it is very important, and I think that's what ownership and the leadership in the business side really understands as well, that you don't, changes are going to be made, but certain areas you really if it's not necessary and it's not broke, there's no reason trying to fix it. And I think hopefully we fit that category. And I know selfishly, I just really enjoy doing the games, and I enjoy basketball. I'm truly glad not to have to go to watch practices and a bunch of non-talented draft guys work out.
I'm there.
I've had enough of that over the years. So, but just the NBA game and the Kings, and I'm just probably like most people, and I think Gary and Grant just really want to see the Kings play well and do well. But it's also true we love basketball, and we like, if it's the other team playing well, we can appreciate that as well.
Of course. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this portion of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. Jerry, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I think this is the third or fourth time we've done the podcast together, and it's always a pleasure.
Well, I really enjoy doing it, James. So anytime, I've become a big fan of yours. so let's just hope this year turns out a lot better than it started, and no reason it can't.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Jerry Reynolds. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to the Cowbell Kingdom Podcast. I am James Ham. Joining me in this segment, Mr. Aaron Bruski, NBC Sports. Aaron, opening night, Sacramento Kings, Golden State Warriors, San Francisco Giants.
What a hoss. Madison Bumgarner is my hero. As a baseball pitcher back in the day, you can only throw the ball so hard with a smaller frame. That guy is just all man, just getting up there, knocking it down for 5 innings. I'm so impressed by that guy.
Yeah, he was a stud. It was really interesting to be at Sleep Train Arena because the fans right before halftime were completely caught. They were all turned looking for TVs. They're looking into the boxes trying to find the TVs. We had no internet at all night long because everyone was streaming the game. It was just a complete disaster from a writing standpoint, and I'm switching to trying to tweet out stuff on my phone. Just not really a good night for internet connection until the Giants game was over. But like the Kings and Golden State are going at it, and the fans are reacting to the Giants game and just going nuts. Like while guys are in the middle of free throws, while guys are in the middle of a fast break, it's almost like someone fell and got injured and everyone's like up in arms. It was just really, really strange.
Or like there was 20 fights in the stands at once. And, the Warriors fans travel well for that game.
Yes.
And so, everybody was on the same team, I bet. And it was my first time not being at the opener in a while. So I was a little disappointed I wasn't there for all that chaos.
It was chaos, man. That's how I would describe it. Chaotic. It was weird and strange, and everyone's flipping for a channel. Personally, I'm an Oakland Athletics fan. I could care less who won that game. I may or may not have been pulling for Kansas City just because Lorenzo, the Kings PR guy, is from Kansas City, and he's a huge fan, and he's all alone basically. But, I was sort of ambivalent once the Oakland Athletics were out of it. Anyway, Aaron, let's get to the basketball. Did you have a chance to watch that game from start to finish?
On a 12-game night, I have my dedicated Kings TV set because I know that knowing about Kings basketball is priority number one.
Priority
number one. And interesting game, man. I don't know where you want to jump into it, but there's a lot going on for Sacramento Kings basketball.
There was. Let me start with this. Did you happen to see the pregame right before they brought the Kings out and they did their thing on the floor?
This is going around the league like a virus, and it's a cool virus. I did see it, and that's just insane. I mean, we're gonna have full 3D holograms. In 3 years, NBA 3.0, holograms will come and bring you your beer.
Yeah.
Is that what we're looking at?
We may get to watch really good basketball in hologram form while the other players are not being successful.
Because they don't want to deal with fans and media.
Maybe that's what will happen. It was stunning. I don't know how else to describe it. It was off the hook, Aaron, to be there and see
the entire new floor basically become a giant HD television screen, and they were playing stuff out on that floor. It was so crisp, so clear. I mean, they started like doing weird, like it looks like you could see underneath the floor, and then all of a sudden, the floor starts to ripple, and then then they start running like player old player video on the floor, and it's crisp, it's clear. I mean, it literally looked like the biggest television that I've ever seen, and really, really interesting to watch. And I guess on Halloween night, they got a whole nother trick up their sleeve with spiders and other things coming out of the floor. So at least that was fun, right?
It reminds me of the China Olympics when they busted out that huge. It was like they did the same thing, but it was just huge. I mean, it was like the size of the entire stadium, and the reaction then was like, oh my God, what the hell are they doing over there? And after, watching it on the TV feed, typically there's the big boom and the intro's always huge, and announcer Scott is just killing it and everybody's all fired up. So I don't really get surprised about anything. But after that intro, you could hear like a gasp in the TV feed. Like people were genuinely shocked that they had just seen that.
Yeah, it was something that caught you off guard. And you know what? The Kings came out and really played solid basketball for the first half. I think that's where we can start. We can start with sort of the positives of this game. DeMarcus Cousins held his own, got in some foul trouble, but he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. The Warriors really, sort of tightened down the paint. Bogut is a very good defender. So is Festus Ezeli. And so you had this like really hard struggle for DeMarcus Cousins to get anything going, but at the same time, he just kept going at them and picking up more and more fouls until they had no one to run up against him. I think at the half he had 14 free throw attempts. He was all over the place, and I think that's what we're going to see a lot this season. Our teams really they can't handle him, so they're just going to beat him down, almost like what we used to see with Shaq. What I would have liked to have seen was DeMarcus bring out Bogut, bring out Festus Ezeli, and make them work from 18 feet out and make them stop his jump shot for a little while. And I think that would have probably mixed things up a bit and maybe opened things up for other players where, certainly they have great defenders at the center position, but if you could have fed Jason Thompson for 5 post plays against Harrison Barnes, I think you could have had some success.
Yeah, so I guess where do I start there? With DeMarcus, I wrote for NBC Sports last night. I said, if this is a bad game, get ready for his great ones. Because you picked up everything, I think, perfectly. And the part about him noticing the defensive alignment and trying to, in this case, not beat, these guys, they're probably the burliest center combination that he's going to face this year, as far as just pure mass goes. He could take them outside and negate that advantage. And so that would be a game that he would want to do that. I thought that he just didn't have the ball just wasn't falling for him.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of his takes were fine. So I really have a problem with DeMarcus's play, even defensively. He wasn't standing out like a sore thumb on rotations. He took 2 great charges. So I file this in a decent game for DeMarcus. But, the Warriors are the other team that I watch exclusively and probably don't miss too many games. I want to be careful before we say that the Kings played well in the first half, because that Warrior team that'll be the worst game they have probably all year.
You think so? I thought that the Kings actually played well defensively against them. Like, I'm not going to say that the Kings are world beaters, but you go up against a jump shooting team, which the Warriors are. I mean, they don't feed Bogut hardly at all. They don't feature him at all. No David Lee. They go with sort of the small ball with Draymond and with Harrison Barnes up front. I thought that the Kings closed out well on 3-point shots. I thought that they stayed with Klay Thompson well, and I thought that Darren Collison did an exceptional job of giving Steph Curry like a weird jab step to throw him off his game. It was like he was D'ing him up, but then he kept jumping in on him, and it just kind of disrupted Curry. And I don't think Curry had a great game. I think Curry realistically got a couple of lucky calls, as far as like he got the 3 free throws from Sessions. They called a foul against Sessions when clearly Curry kicked out. At least that's what it looked like to me. And they called a couple other things where I think Curry got a couple more points than he probably should have. And so I kind of looked at the way that the Kings played. It's pretty solid defensively, especially in the backcourt.
I didn't think they played bad in the first half. I mean, heck, they were winning. But, I think it was the guys that I read for the Warriors, Marcus Thompson for the Bay Area News Group and Rusty Simmons pretty much shared the opinion that these guys, whether maybe it was due to Steve Kerr's first game coaching and they're still not, comfortable or familiar with what he wants to run. But I would say, and I'm not sure which one of them said something like this, but they just looked like they rolled out of bed and said, hey, we're going to Sacramento. We're going to play a basketball game. And they weren't up for it. Steph looked like he was sleeping. Maybe they got a little bit of the flu going on. Bogut, he's really
had
sick.
Stomach issues, yeah.
Yeah, he's really sick. I'm sure we can go up and down the line and talk about individual performances because I did think there were some guys that played, if not, well, just at a minimum, they played at an average level that Kings fans should appreciate after last night.
Yeah, but then we get to the third quarter. I think in the first half we saw good things out of Carl Landry. We saw good things out of DeMarcus Cousins, even though he was struggling. We saw Nick Stauskas come in his first game and, drop a three. I think he had like 6 or 7 points really early in the game and looked really solid. Darren Collison, again, looked solid. Rudy Gay did not look solid. Derek Williams looked non-existent. Ben McLemore couldn't have had a worse start to the season. And even Jason Thompson. Jason Thompson was doing the dirty work early but kind of fell off in the second half. But we get to that third quarter, and my goodness, they came undone.
Yeah, it didn't take long, did it?
Just horrible.
They're a team without leadership, without an identity. And when I say leadership, I mean on the court. I mean, this isn't a Mike Malone thing. I mean, this is just I wanted Darren Collison to have the ball more. He was beating Steph pretty easily, and Steph's defense looked as bad as I've ever seen it last night. And I guess they've pounded it into Rudy and DeMarcus's heads that they're the guys. If Rudy's going to take the shots that he's taken in Toronto, it's going to be a long year for Kings fans.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest disappointment, wasn't it? I remember specifically Rudy Gay having a wide open Stauskas on a play. He had a wide open Darren Collison in the corner for a clear three, a clean three, and went in and forced the ball. I thought we saw over dribbling. Michael Malone talked about in the post.
Wait, but Isaiah Thomas isn't on the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what do we have? We had 27 turnovers, and I think it was 12 assists. And of the 12 assists, 8 of them were Darren Collison's.
The Sacramento Bee was covering the Giants last night, so I don't really know what happened.
Yeah, no, that's true. They did miss the blow up by Isaiah Thomas in Phoenix, where he scored 23 points in 20 minutes on like 9 of 11 shooting.
It was against the Lakers D-League squad.
Oh yeah, well the Lakers are a D-League squad. They're like a D-League and like Father Time, like running up and down the court. But that third quarter, I don't think I've seen something. I mean, Michael Malone compared it to Keystone Cops. He said that's what his team looked like. I mean, Ramon Sessions, he played 2 minutes in the third quarter and turned the ball over four times. And Michael Malone needed like a 14-foot long sheep herder's hook to rip him off the court. Like, please stop now what you're doing. What are you doing?
Well, Kings fans we've heard about all the great things, and I've been pretty high on the Sessions pickup, but Kings fans got the other side of the equation, and why he got the contract that he got that was so cheap is that he's not a real point guard. He's a shooting guard in a point guard's body that can get to the rack. He can make plays. He'll get some assists. He'll rebound the basketball even. He's just not a point guard. So when he starts to lose his handle, it can look really bad.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like them starting the season with Stauskas alongside him, because I think Stauskas can handle the ball as well. But then again, I also look at Darren Collison, and Darren Collison's now in a starting lineup with one ball handler. Again, it's not easy to get the ball into an offensive set when you only have one ball handler. And I think the Kings will probably go to Stauskas relatively soon because, number one, he's a knockdown shooter. But, number two, he's got other skills that McLemore just doesn't have at this stage in his career and may never have as far as a ball handler, as far as a passer, a distributor. And so I think you start out the game a little rocky, a little rough with, two guys trying to fill each other out in the backcourt. Then you come in with your second unit, and again, it's two guys who have never really played with each other, trying to fill each other out. And what happens is just massive, massive turnovers, like just ridiculous turnovers.
Well, and number 3 on McLemore, if he ever takes a 3-point shot from 3 to 4 feet behind the 3-point line with 16 seconds on the shot clock on a night that he hasn't hit the broadside of the barn with a baseball bat,
yeah,
he's going to get. I could not believe I saw him take that shot. I mean, I get it. People take bad shots at times, but that was just beyond belief. And if he continues to play like that, I wouldn't be surprised to see Stauskas in the starting lineup in 10 games.
That would be my prediction.
I mean, like 10. I want to say 5, but I'll give it 10.
I mean, you look at the start to the season, and it's brutal, right? The first 12 games are absolutely brutal. While the Kings are trying to, let the pot simmer and figure out what this team is, they're getting run over by a Mack truck. I mean, most of the teams that are playing in the first 12 games are playoff teams. A lot of them are on the road. It's a hideous, hideous schedule. So maybe they've set this up where, 8 games in, they need to make a change at a position, and they look at Stauskas joining the starting lineup, and they look at, I don't know if it'll be Reggie Evans starting, if they don't get things moving quickly. And it's just going to be really, really difficult to do that just based on schedule alone. And then, again, this team is got so many different pieces, and they just don't know how they fit together yet.
Yeah, and on Stauskas, I was pretty impressed. I mean, defensively, he got exposed in every which way possible, so I don't want to overstate the case for him, starting or him as, a player at this stage in his career. They targeted him relentlessly, and he was getting lost off screens, and he'll figure that stuff out as he goes. But God, talk about you just watch a player and you're comfortable with them on offense. He took the screen on a screen and roll, and when the defender gives you daylight and you're a shooter like he is, you rise up and shoot. Yeah. It's a play that they practice a million times a day, and he just did that, and he swished it, and it was the and one jump shot play.
Oh yeah, the and one jumper. Yeah,
and it was. I mean, good job on the pick there, because at a minimum, that you're going to get an offensive player that can contribute, and you can deal with the defensive deficiencies at a later date.
Yeah, I didn't. Of course, we saw defensive issues, especially when the Warriors decided to post up Stauskas with guys like Klay Thompson and Harrison Barnes, who clearly outweigh Stauskas by, 20 pounds. And he had a really tough time in the post, but on the perimeter, I thought he was okay. I thought he closed out well. I thought he held his own. I mean, he ended up playing 27 minutes, and clearly it wasn't his fault they lost that game. You could probably get 9 players deep before you got to Nick Stauskas to point a finger at in that game. And not only that, but he got 2 really suspect calls against him where, one time he took a guy to the hole on a fast break and clearly got fouled and got nothing. Another time, he went up for a 3-pointer, ended up missing by 3 or 4 feet, where the guy smacked his arm on his follow-through, and again got absolutely nothing. He was looking at the ref just beside himself, and that's just one of those welcome to the NBA.
Yeah, welcome to the league, Rook.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen. He's going to get that quite a few more times, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's, but wait 2-3 years from now, he's going to be the type of player that teams hate because he will be getting those calls.
I think so. Now, DeMarcus Cousins is that type of player now where he's getting the calls. How many free throws a game is this guy going to take?
Okay, so I looked at that, and I had him at just under 10, and then last night he decided to blow that out of the water. And keep in mind, there's only been 118 seasons don't ask me why I know this. There's 118 seasons where players have averaged 10 or more free throws in a game, and Shaq had 10 of 13 in his first 13 seasons. So just give a little bit of perspective on what type of a player can do that. And so I had him at just under 10. I think that he can have 10 free throws a game for pretty easily, especially if the Kings are going to struggle for other options on offense. I mean, at this point, in last night, we didn't see this that much, is they got to dump the ball down to him in the post. I do agree that he should have been shooting jumpers to draw them out of the paint. But, I mean, if you're going to be running him and Rudy and saying, these are our guys, make DeMarcus Cousins your guy. Get him down there banging, drawing fouls, getting other people in foul trouble. It just makes a lot of sense. So hopefully they trend in that direction.
Yeah, I think the one thing that was interesting in postgame in the locker room, DeMarcus talked about how Tyrone Corbin told him for tonight, I want you in the post. I want you in the post the whole entire night, which, number one, leads me to believe that Tyrone Corbin is working on a lot of the offensive aspects with his team, which makes sense because that's his background, is, as an offensive guy, coming from the Jerry Sloan system. Also, he's coached under a few others, and he played under, like, every single coach that you could possibly imagine. So he was a coach, as a player. You knew Ty Corbin was always going to be a coach. But I found it interesting that Cousins specifically said Tyrone Corbin wanted me in the post tonight. And so I guess that's where we're at, right? You got to follow what your coach says. And if Corbin is the one game planning this thing, then that was the plan.
Well, this is a case of the macro view overtaking the micro view, where they want Cousins to stop taking jumpers, I think, is what it boils down to. And in this particular game, it would have been wise for him to take jumpers. So you're looking at this speaks to the Kings' ability to, I guess, react and change their game plan, because they're just having a hard time with, the general game plan in the first place. So it's like baby steps before you could, go run out there like the Spurs and say, well, this is the weakness of the other team, and we're going to attack it with this precision instrument. Right now, they're just taking a big old boogie club and saying, bam, 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 bam. We're going to just beat you over the head with boogie. That's the best they got right now.
Yeah, but, we talked about this with Jason Thompson. I would have loved to have seen the Kings dump Rudy Gay in the post and have Cousins run a high post, option and sit there and feed the ball down to Rudy, because clearly Rudy had a huge size advantage over Iguodala. I didn't understand him trying to take Iguodala off the dribble. It's like he forgot who Iguodala was. But I would have liked to have seen Gay with his back to the basket, because he's so smooth in the post. He is. I mean, he's got great moves in the post, and he finishes with that finger roll just so well. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. Yeah,
you had one of your George Gervin finger rolls, and God, it's just so obvious what the deal is with Rudy. And you take a guy like Isaiah Thomas away, and you don't have anybody that, like, legitimately, you need a bucket. You can go to DeMarcus, you can go to Rudy, maybe you can go to one of these other guys, but, like, there is not a guy that's going to be able to look Rudy in the eye and say, I should be shooting and not you. But the problem is Rudy just takes it a little too far. So he's going to take a fadeaway falling into the bench on the baseline, and he's going to take a three-pointer that really, he shouldn't be taking. And it's just Toronto all over again. So I don't know how they reel him in after a summer of pumping him up and telling him that he's the man. They're going to have to say, hey, Rudy, you should operate below the elbow type. The post is a great place for him because it keeps him, working towards the hoop. As long as he doesn't turn into that fadeaway, which can be a good shot for him, he just can't rely on it too much because it does too many bad things for the offense.
Yeah, I totally get that, and it is a concern. I think it might be a one-game issue that might pop up here and there throughout the season, but I don't think it's because I think Rudy Gay knows that Toronto Rudy Gay doesn't get paid. Last year, Sacramento Kings, Rudy Gay gets paid. And so he's got to, have it going through his mind that, look, if I'm known as a black hole, if I'm known as a guy who has to shoot, 18 shots to get 20, then I'm not going to make the money that I want to make. And so I think he's going to tone it back. I think, maybe it's first game jitters. Maybe it's trying to impress people or something like that, or trying to put the team on your back and bring him back into a game, especially with Cousins struggling with foul trouble in the second half. But you gotta, like, when Derek Williams and Omri Caspi are who's coming in to replace you, you probably want to be on the floor as much as possible if you're interested in winning the game. Because those guys, I mean, last night Derek Williams was just such a non-factor. And,
I think he might have played his way, if not out of the rotation, if maybe say he gets 3 strikes with Malone, who I would hate to be Mike Malone's cardiologist, because that man is an angry pool of venom at times during the game, and rightfully so. There was a play where Derek Williams is the guy that's supposed to be protecting against the fast break, and he backpedals like he's at a summer league game, or not even a summer league game, like a Drew League game. And Iguodala, like an Olympic sprinter, is like huffing and puffing past him. Derek doesn't even see him, and he's right next to him. And then he gets behind him for the layup. And then Malone came with the hook. So if that does not get him out of the rotation, it's strike one, because you just can't have that.
John and I always had this term that we throw out there. It's called showcase. Showcase.
Yes.
And I thought Omri Caspi played all preseason long, and I think that they were trying to get him acclimated to the team, because I don't think Derek Williams is long for this roster. I think Derek Williams, they're going to look to deal him as quickly as possible. As soon as someone else says yes, then Derek Williams is in a different uniform, and that's where we're at with that guy. I don't think that he's shown enough, and he's still got potential. He's still only 23 years old, but potential with him is now becoming like a bad word. It's like a curse word. Like, Derek Williams has potential. He's got to produce.
So what you're saying is that that a little birdie might bring a note to Mike that says, run 20 consecutive backdoor alley-oop cuts for Derek Williams next game?
Yeah, I'm going to need you to run all game long with Derek Williams. All game. Yeah. I guess that's where you're at, though, with him, right? It's like he can't really do anything else. He can rebound, but he doesn't pass the ball at all. He's not a great ball handler. A lot of isolation stuff, and now he thinks he's a shooter, which he didn't have anything go down in this game really. So it's not gonna be pretty watching Derek Williams get major minutes, and so Rudy Gay has to be on the floor and he has to play well. I think that's like the long and the short of it.
I don't think Philly would do it, but he would be good in a place like Philly where he could get on court experience and try to, get a little confidence going.
I guess so, but I mean, it seems like there's there's like a bit of an ambivalence there. Like, does he really care about basketball? Does he really care to be great? And I think the question about him wanting to be great has always been like a major question. He's content to be just a role player, and I think his expectations may just keep going down from there, and that's not something that you want out of the second pick in the draft, and that's why he's on his second team, and it's why he'll be on his third team before next season, just because I don't think he's shown the basketball world that he really wants to play. Like, Jimmer Fredette really wants to play basketball. He loves the game of basketball, and he's fought tooth and nail to get to the league. Now, will it work out? I don't know. Another top 10 pick. But I'm making the comparison here because you have two guys who haven't really got their sea legs under them at the NBA level, and one of them does really want to be in the league, and the other one, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it's in him to want this enough to be, to sort of do all that it takes to be great in the league.
Yeah, they say perception's reality. I think if he had changed, your perception or others' perceptions of that same exact thing, then people would know about it. So, hopefully he gets to a spot where he can. I really think a place like Philly would be great. I don't think that Philly's interested in making that deal, but if a player could resurrect their career, maybe that's the type of place that would work out. So Hinkie, if you're listening, pick up Derek Williams.
There it is. Derek Williams for, I don't know, one of those first-round picks so the Kings can actually trade a first-round pick going forward. As opposed to having it just locked in. Okay, let's switch gears, Aaron.
Yes.
We beat the Sacramento Kings opening night loss to the Golden State Warriors to death. Again, 77 points in the game. They shot 30.8% from the field, turned the ball over 27 times. Those are stats that you don't need to go further than. They lost because they turned the ball over and they didn't shoot well. So let's move on to our what's going on in the NBA section of the podcast, around the league. And the one team that really I want to talk about after their opening night is the New Orleans Pelicans. Aaron, are they for real?
Fly, Pelicans, fly. I love the Pelicans.
They're for real, aren't they?
I picked them to make the playoffs because at least I got 2 of the top 9 teams falling out of the West. And I think I picked Dallas and Houston to fall out. And then I've got Phoenix and the Pelicans making it in. Yeah, they're for real. Up and down the lineup, it finally fits. The addition of Omer Asik has been just, it was so under the radar this offseason. The contract's not that great, but he frees up Anthony Davis to play the freak. He just, and I think I'll blow everybody away right now. I think that he can prove this season that he had the best NBA season of any player. Now, will he get the respect and the adulation that LeBron James gets? No, but this is a player that we have never seen at the NBA level, including LeBron James. LeBron is an elite defender, but he cannot do what Anthony Davis does on the defensive side of the court. And offensively, we have not seen anything close to Anthony Davis's ceiling yet. He's not a point guard, but you got to remember this guy was a guard coming out of high school, and then he had a growth spurt from like 6'2" to his current height. So he has guard skills. If he wants to run Steve Nebraska from, the movie The Scout, where Brendan Fraser can hit home runs on every at bat, and he strikes out 27 guys in an 81, pitch effort, he can be that guy. The only concern with him is injuries, but when you consider that he could probably play like 70 games, feel pretty good about that type of projection. Drew Holiday, Tyreek Evans at the 3, Anthony Davis at the 4, Omer Asik at the 5. That's 4 great defenders. Not good. Well, I put Tyreek Evans in the good category because on this type of team, his deficiencies as far as space and awareness are going to not be as big of an issue.
Yeah.
You have 4 athletes that can just lock down the other team. So you're going to see them take a little while to gel. Drew Holiday's playing at 80% right now. Eric Gordon, big, huge injury risk. Their bench is going to need time to gel. They have a little bit of depth issues. But, yeah, as far as a playoff spot, they're for real.
I think so too, man. I like watching them. That first night, they got 17 rebounds out of both Asik and out of Davis. And Davis had 9 blocks and Asik had 5 blocks. They were just incredible.
Keep in mind the Magic are a young team that's going to give up.
That are horrible. Yeah.
And actually, I have them in the playoffs too, but that's another story for another episode.
What?
Yeah, well, the East is terrible, man.
It's terrible. I know.
It's terrible.
But still, I don't buy that.
We will revisit this audio in a later podcast.
I guess everyone is fair game in the East except for Philadelphia, right? Everyone else can.
Oh, Milwaukee looked good until they gave up their 24-point lead last night.
Oh, yeah. So again, sticking with what we're going to see going forward. They're a playoff team, right? The Pelicans, they look like a playoff team. They feel like a playoff team.
It's going to go down to the wire, I think, for probably the bottom, the seeds 5 through 8, and then the 9 and 10, and maybe even the 11 slot, who knows, will go down to the wire. It's just too tightly bunched.
Yeah.
You could make a case for whoever's going to be the 7 or 8 seed could possibly upset the 1 and 2 seed. The Thunder just aren't going to be that. They're not a dominant Western Conference playoff team. They'll have a good regular season record that won't be as good because of the Kevin Durant injury. San Antonio, you can't really bet against them. But, the Clippers, they're one key injury away from going from great to just merely good.
I don't
So
know. They've
yeah,
got a good bench. They've got a solid structure there.
at the wing they're a little bit weak because if you lose either Jamal Crawford or JJ Redick, then you're looking at like Chris Douglas Roberts or
That's not
you
good.
know, yeah, it gets pretty thin. And hopefully they'll bring somebody in because I'd hate to see their season derailed by one little injury to JJ Redick or something.
Yeah, I do like their big men. I like that, coming off the bench, you have Spencer Hawes, you got Big Baby. I think that they've got some talent at almost every position. Their bench in the Pacific, to me, is the best bench. And for that matter, I think the Warriors have some major issues with their bench. I do not think that their bench is going to be very good at all. And it could be the Achilles heel on that team, especially if David Lee or if Bogut go down like they typically do during the season.
Well, Kings fans can be pretty happy that they weren't successful in grabbing Andre Iguodala because he is, I don't know, he just looks like a shell of himself, a player that relies on explosion, that has a lot of mileage on the tires.
Yeah.
And I mean, for a guy that's been pretty injured, he hasn't missed many games at all. He's had pretty much flawless performance in that area. So I think it's caught up with him. I actually think their bench is pretty good, but I don't think David Lee is going to be playing as many minutes for them. And Draymond Green is, that's going to be a name that you see popping up here in kind of like almost like a poor man's Kawhi Leonard in terms of having an underrated game, and then he just shows up and it's like pop, oh my God, he's playing. He's a starter for a contender, and he's getting big minutes. So yeah, but with the Clippers, your listeners love Spencer Hawes, I'm sure, and Obama fans and fans of toilet paper love Spencer Hawes.
He's a fan favorite. I hope that he comes in with a mullet again.
Well, you know what he's got right now? He's got this like poofy, slicked back, sort of like, I think he's gone Hollywood. Seattle people, he might not even, recognize you guys anymore because he's so LA. He's a great acquisition for them. I mean, God, the way he's blossomed as a player from behind the three-point line, hitting 42% of his threes last year, doing it in two different places and not really slowing down, and he looks good for the Clippers already. That is going to be that one acquisition that I think makes them I actually have them winning it all this year. So you heard it here first.
Interesting. All right, well, before we jump off of this, everybody has had their fantasy basketball drafts if you're going to be in fantasy basketball. And Aaron is a fantasy basketball specialist. So, Aaron, after everybody gets drafted, after you're sitting there, you've made up your lineups, and you're looking at your season. Give me like 3 guys that are sitting there in your league that the chances are weren't drafted, that you probably need to go grab and stash on the end of your bench because they're going to be players.
I like that question. That's a good question. Okay. Number 1, Kyle O'Quinn. I know you're going to say, who is Kyle O'Quinn? He is the man. He is a forward center for Orlando, and he played 20 minutes a game last year, and during those 20 minutes a game, he was able to put up top 100 value for about 3 straight months. Nobody knew who he was. This year, he's added a 3-point shot to his game, and last game, while dealing with foul trouble, which is going to be an issue for him, he actually handed out 5 assists.
Nice.
So he's an underrated part of the Magic attack, and I wouldn't get too worried about guys like Channing Frye coming back and throwing salt in his game because we already saw him in this role last year. He was super consistent, so he has a nice floor, and owners can get a guy that basically wasn't even drafted. So Kyle O'Quinn would be 1. Rudy Gobert was a huge name in fantasy circles over the summer, and
really?
Oh yeah, and Rudy Gobert is going to take the league by storm as soon as next year, if not sooner. He'll.
Is this a Halloween Jack the Pumpkin King joke?
No, he had 20 rebounds in a preseason game. Preseason.
Yeah, because he played a lot of minutes.
No. Okay, well, you will see, my friend. Rudy Gobert is going to be a guy because Enes Kanter is, Quinn Snyder, talked with him a lot during Summer League. He's a real cerebral coach, and his expectations are going to be that guys play well. He complained about their defense last night. Enes Kanter is a defensive liability. Rudy Gobert is the guy that improves their defense by leaps and bounds. So
he's a shot blocker. I know that. He is a shot blocker.
He's that guy that's going to come in. If he plays 20 minutes a game, he'll return top 100 value. If he plays, say, like 25, 27 minutes a game, if they flip-flop the minutes between him and Cantor, then he's going to be a guy that can potentially get you like top 75, top 50 upside. So Rudy Gobert and a third one, OJ Mayo. Fat OJ Mayo probably went on my carb-free diet, and he's unrecognizable. I mean, he even looks thinner than any other time during his career, and he looked awesome last night. He is going to be the guy that Milwaukee turns to for stability. I know they've got like 5 shooting guards playing the point guard position for them right now, but OJ Mayo is going to be the guy with the experience that they turn to. He had 18 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, I think, something in that ballpark last night. Did it all very efficiently, and he was basically going undrafted. So 3 guys, I think O'Quinn and Mayo are the guys that you can plug in right now, but if you're looking for somebody's stash for the long term, take a look at Gobert.
I have officially added Kyle O'Quinn and dropped... I don't even want to say.
Who'd you drop?
I don't want to tell you who's on my team. We did an auto draft, and I had Swaggy P on my team, so Swaggy P is gone. I've given up Swaggy P for...
You know what's funny? Like, Lakers fans are desperately awaiting the return of Swaggy P because they need him in the worst way.
Yeah, they can have him. He is now available in my league. Go ahead, Lakers fans. Go ahead. Yeah. All right, Aaron. Well, hey, I love it. I love that we can bring that sort of perspective to this podcast. I do, like, I looked at Kyle O'Quinn, like, because I needed another center, and I thought, well, maybe I can pick him up, and now I've done it. I've done it because of you. So you have turned around my fantasy basketball season. If only I could get your help on my fantasy. No, I'm not. Fantasy football. It's just been horrible.
You don't want my help on fantasy football.
No, it's been ugly this year.
I'm no good.
All right, so that's going to do it for this edition of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. Thank you so much, Aaron Bruski, for joining me in this second segment. And we'll be back next week. You know, the Kings have a wild, crazy schedule. It does not look very pleasant over the next, I don't know, even 7 days. It's going to be ugly, and we're going to have to see some major improvement from this team, especially with the turnovers and on the offensive end. So hopefully we'll have something better to talk about, but we'll certainly have a larger sample size to talk about. So for Aaron Bruski, I am James Ham. You have been listening to the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. We'll see you next week.